The Daymar Rally is a yearly event that pits those daring enough to take on the terrain and other dangers of Daymar against each other through 3 divisions. The bike division, which consists of the Drake Dragonfly, the Auec, the Auec Q, and the Consolidated Outland Hoverquad. The truck division consisting of the Anvil Spartan, Ursa Rover, and Ursa Rover Fortuna. And the most popular, the buggy division, which sees all variants of the Cyclone, with the exception of the Cyclone MT, racing alongside the Grey Cat STV. 2953 being the 5th annual running of the Daymar Rally, the event is actually put on by Atmo Esports. And this really is the premier community event and has become so popular that it has had its place secured in the official lore of Star Citizen. Modeled after the Dakar Rally, which is a real-life race created in 1978, in which the race was ran between Paris, France and Dakar, Senegal, but due to security threats, the race was actually moved to South America for 2009 through 2019. But since 2020, the Dakar has actually been held in Saudi Arabia. The rally is open to amateur and professional racers and is ran by motorcycles as well as off-road vehicles. Stretching over 4,000 kilometers or the equivalent of 2,500 miles, to say the Dakar is grueling is an understatement. Emrock's Fang had the opportunity to once again participate in the Daymar Rally, but this extraordinary event is not one that you just enter and not prepare for. When approached in this manner, you will likely become one of those in the long list of non-finishers. To prepare for the Daymar Rally, participants tend to begin months ahead of time and even some immediately after the previous race. Practicing the race legs and mapping the terrain and finding the best possible routes, calculating where the most time can be shaved off, and most treacherous and time-consuming terrain can be avoided. The course itself stretches over 510 kilometers from Shubin Mining Facility SCD-1 out to Eager Flats, then turns south to proceed to Kudra Ore. Other than a single mid-leg mandatory check-in point between Eager Flats and Kudra Ore known as the Betty, this is a massive aegis reclaimer. The course is wide open with no boundaries. This allows teams to venture in as many directions as they can to avoid obstacles, though no course that you take can keep you out of the path of dangerous terrain. All it can really do is minimize the risk as you proceed. With months of practice, we arrived at race day ready to go and up for conquering the course. We felt we mapped out the best routes that we could and had our game plan together. But if it's one thing that Daymar really teaches you, is that it does not give a damn about your plans.
Frankly, Miss Piggy, I don't give a hoot.
The race got underway, and while we had a decent start on the hover bikes, the buggy team consisting of J-Scale and Vumic as the support ship and Anrol and Gravity Cat driving immediately had concerns. Gravity Cat had actually gotten caught up in a large amount of desync with other cyclones and exploded almost immediately after the starting line. This was an initial setback as J-Scale and Vumic had to quickly land the C2 and immediately get Anrol off the ship and into the race. With a successful launch, Anrol was on his way though and had some ground to make up. Over on the hoverbike side, I was the first driver on the course and Flex 4218 was going to be the other driver for the race. We also had H3D and Lawn Dart in our C2 for support crew, and we were actually making good speed. Though had an early setback due to taking a couple of hard hits on rocks, we actually swapped out Dragonflies fairly early and continued on. Pinpointing our support ship this close to the beginning was also difficult, but eventually we did sort out our position and got back on track. Making way to Eager Flats, getting close to the first checkpoint, the Dragonfly actually took a very hard hit and the call was made to swap it out, as I had lost brake and all speed control. Jumping off the bike, it proceeded into a ravine, and with the rule that swaps had to be done at the current vehicle's location, I attempted to go down the ravine only to end up incapacitating myself. Lawn Dart though was quick to revive me, and once back on board, Flex proceeded out of the ship and on his way to Eager Flats. He actually made very quick time of the short distance left to get there and proceeded to check in, and then immediately got back in the race and proceeded toward the Betty. Meanwhile, Anrol was still en route to Eager Flats, but had a much longer time to go because of the speed difference between the buggies and the hover bikes. Also, it did not have the ability to as easily avoid obstacles as the hover bike did, but Anrol did begin pulling himself ahead of the others. With more to watch out for than just terrain, the Daymar Rally has other dangers that can interfere with the racer's path. Pirates. It is not an uncommon occurrence to see pirates or others to show up with the intent to interrupt the race. This is usually seen heaviest on the buggy servers, so Anrol, J-Scale, and Vumic had other things to watch out for and consider. especially as pirates had already been reported as attacking racers on their server. Piracy is an expected occurrence in the Daymar Rally, and while Atmo Esports does employ numerous orgs as security forces, they obviously cannot monitor all the racers at all times, though the security does do an amazing job limiting those interactions with pirates. Back on the hoverbikes, Flex had been doing well to pilot his Dragonfly to the Betty, with H3D and myself guiding him, while Laundart was managing all the reports back to Atmo Esports. Flex did pass under the legs of the massive reclaimer and checked into the mid-leg checkpoint. Just past the Betty, the decision was made to swap out the vehicles and the drivers as we proceeded to the last leg of 209 kilometers to Kuja Ore. Once the C2 landed, Flex walked on board and I departed on my way towards the finish line. Making good time zipping through the rocks and debris, I eventually made the unfortunate acquaintance with an unseen rock. This immediately caused my Dragonfly to explode and unfortunately taking me with it. H3D, Laundart, and Flex did immediately get prepared and proceed to the spot of my collision, and Flex was able to get onto another Dragonfly and get back onto the race course to finish the race. With a smooth transition and a fresh vehicle, Flex was determined to make the end. Back with the buggy, Team Admiral had made his way to the head of the buggy group on his server. Having pulled far in the lead with the assistance of J-Scale and Vumic on the support ship, he was already past Kuja Ore checkpoint and proceeding along his way to the Betty, with Papa Freedom, who was one of Atmos Esports cameramen, following close in tow. Admiral did continue to push ahead diligently though. Along the way, all the teammates were watching for other dangers, unaware of what position they were in compared to the other racers. As the buggy team proceeded on the course, coming closer to the Betty, out of the sky ahead of them came trouble. A torpedo passed by their port quarter from ahead, barely missing the C2 and the Cyclone, possibly tracking even on Papa Freedom. Hearing from their comms calls for evasive maneuvers and the indication that they could not get chaff to launch, the realization of the bug that places noise and flare control in the co-pilot came a second too late as a second size 9 torpedo ripped into the side of the C2, taking out Admiral's support ship. Rules do provide though that for a team, if pirated, can respawn 1 support personnel, 1 support ship, and a single replacement race vehicle. The crew was quick to select and send J-Scale to support Admiral, spawning in a replacement C2 that already had an additional Cyclone on board that was prepped ahead of time. For the time being though, Admiral would be on his own and security had already been informed and was on scene to deal with the pirate. During this time, Flex had actually made the journey over the final mountain range, guided by H3D and Laundart to Kuja Ore. Having completed a strong finish on the server, Amarok's Fang had finished third on this server specifically for hoverbikes, but overall standing would not be determined till later as the leaderboard for the event had actually failed. The buggy race though still had a ways to go, and as planned with the launch of J-Scale and the replacement support ship, he would land, allow Admiral to hydrate and change vehicles, and then relaunch to continue on. Unfortunately, no one could have predicted the foreshadowing that the team's name of No O2 for You would actually have. J-Scale landed and Admiral did successfully relaunch after a well-earned breather, as he was still in first on the server. He departed the C2 and within a short amount of time realized that he was suffocating due to not having placed his helmet back on.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
With J-Scale already airborne, Admiral had no chance of being saved, and he unfortunately perished on the moon's surface behind the wheel of his Cyclone, leaving J-Scale to take over as a driver to finish the final 200 plus kilometers to Kuja Ore. With no support ship or even guidance other than the other racers' markers, J-Scale continued on for another 2 hours towards the finish line, thankfully with little issues. Other buggy racers though could not stay the same, as many began experiencing the cooler failure known to plague the wheeled vehicles. As provisions had been made for the truck category to offset this bug due to their race could take up to 8 hours, no provisions were actually made for the buggy class, as the course start to finish should have been less than 4 hours. But that did not take into account the time length between the time that the vehicles were spawned to the time that the race started. With Cyclones failing for other teams, many took to running the remaining distance, with some having over 20 kilometers to continue or more. Due to the pirating though, J-Scale did have the benefit of a newly spawned Cyclone and he was unaffected. Still, having lost the lead due to the swap out and untimely death of Admiral, J-Scale still was able to finish with a solid performance thanks to Admiral's efforts, along with Vumix and Gravity Cats, hold the team ahead through the course of the race. Having finished in one of the top spots on their server, Team No 02 for You would cross the finish line and have a successful run. In the hover bikes, 30 teams entered, but only 15 actually crossed the finish line. And in the buggy category, 119 teams actually started, but only 59 actually crossed the finish at Kudraor. So with odds and final figures like that, I say thank you to all of you in both teams for your amazing performance and effort in representing Amarok's Fang. And your showing this year's Daymar Rally is exceptional. I also look forward to racing alongside all of you again in the future. I would also like to thank all the other teams and participants in this year's Daymar Rally, as it is a great honor and pleasure to race alongside all of you. I also give my congrats to the winners of the Daymar Rally, and in the bike division, first place went to RICE, followed by Mutant Motor Mob, and third place was Legacy Fleet. On the buggy division, Kuroda Racing took the top spot, followed by Pedic Squad, and in third, Punch Buggy. In the truck division, first place went to XGR, Daymar Dust Devils brought up second place, and third place was rounded out by Skyer Alpha. All of you showed extreme skill, and I look forward to racing against all the competitors again in the future. To Atmos Esports, I say thank you for once again putting on an amazing event and continuing to provide for amazing content and experiences within the verse. The professionalism that you and your staff have is beyond reproach. I do highly recommend anyone into community events visit atmo.gg for a full list of their events, schedules, and registration links, and get into some of their competitions. It's always a memorable experience and a great time. But I hope you enjoyed this wrap up of the 2953 Daymar Rally. Leave me a comment, let me know what you thought of the race, and remember you can catch the stream every Tuesday and Sunday on Twitch or here on YouTube every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you do want to help support the channel, check out the merch store or hit that join button above and become a member. Thank you again for watching, and please be safe out there, and we will catch you in the verse.